typically been live streaming, so I'm excited to do this. And the only reason I'm doing it, I'm sitting here anyways. I'm doing some research because I'm getting just blown up with questions on this tax bill that went through, and so trying to get some clarity on some of these answers. I think there's a lot of conversation to still be had here, and a lot of people bring up some really good points. So I wanted to just kind of go through them while I'm researching them and start to kind of talk through it. So I did a video where I essentially laid out the kind of primary talking points. You know, what are the main objectives or objections that were made against this bill? So it was 80 to 30 vote, 30 nays, all Democrats voting nay. I don't know specifically why this is a political issue. Why is this a party line issue? It seems like, and this is what this is, and a lot of people just say this is politics, and that's the only way it's played, and I hate that. Absolutely despise that, because we should all be able to have our own free thought. But in 80 to 30, every Republican was a yes, every Democrat was a no. Just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm going to hit these real quick again. It defunds public safety. That's an argument. It's not a tax cut, it's a tax shift. So where's this going to be paid from next? It pushes Florida towards higher fees and higher sales taxes, would be an argument. Kind of the same as the first one. It's not a tax cut, it's a tax shift. It ignores the real problem. It weakens local control, meaning less money at the county level or city level, more money at the state level. It could inflate land prices. I think that's an argument that's being made, and essentially the argument is that, you know, and I don't think that one holds weight, because it would be only for homesteaded property. So I wouldn't put a lot of weight in that one. We'll spend more time on that one. No clear implementation plan. Cool. That's everybody. Anytime you roll out a new plan, anybody who started anything ever, the objectors say, well, tell us every detail that's going to be required for us to make a proper decision, and that's not really reasonable. But I want to give you a couple things where I stand on this. I like the fact of taking some of the power away from the property appraiser component of this. And just an example, and a lot of you have, if you live in the state, have experienced this, where you never get, taxes never go backwards. They never go down. Even though when you're residing there, there is a cap in terms of how much they can go up, they never go back down. And so I kind of called this out on after COVID, 2020, 2021, 2022, and said, where is all the additional money going that is coming into these local counties for property taxes? Well, what do you mean? Well, let's just say you've got somebody who's lived there 30 years. They're going to have a far reduced property tax bill compared to someone who just moves in. Well, we had a surge of people moving in, buying higher priced properties. And so you were having this complete new reassessment period, right? We had these waves of new assessments across the entire state. And it wasn't like you sat there and watched these counties operate at surplus. So it made me the only thing I can possibly think is true is that you spend what you make. When it comes in, we find a place for it. We start a new project we've been waiting on because we now have the funding. So it's not like there's ever an opportunity where they're not going to spend what's coming in. So do you lead with setting a budget based on the needs, based on the infrastructure requirements, based on the services the city and the county want to provide? Or do you see how much you can make and then budget around spending as much as you can? I just know human nature. I don't think we're leading with a budget. I get there's a process for how that should and is supposed to work, but why hasn't it worked? Why didn't we see that massive revenue growth? And the explanation is, well, we had a lot of new people come in, therefore we had a lot of new expenses. Okay, that would, I mean, it doesn't hold water for me, because when we go out and you go in a new area and you build new homes, there's a new impact, brand new impact. and that's accounted for in impact fees. You're charging it to the developers right out of the gate to bring roads, to bring utilities. You're getting new tax revenue from the owners. Like all those things are happening when you do it out in the middle of nowhere for a new neighborhood. But when you're reselling an existing home, there's not really new impact in that area unless you're increasing density somehow. So that doesn't, I don't buy that. But I wanted to go through a couple of these other questions here. So what is because it's the non-school related tax. So I just kind of went through just to assess in a real life example what portion of it is that, right? And so everywhere is going to break down a little differently, whether you're in the county, in the city. You're going to have different line items for what your tax bill is made up of. And so in mine, I pulled mine just to look at it, and we're a homesteaded property, all the typical things. About 31% of it is school-related tax. No, 39% of it. 61% of it is not. So based on the way I understand the bill to be written, we would be eliminating, if this voted through, 61% of the tax bill. So there's that. Where are the other services going to be funded? How is that going to happen? I'm going to do some deep dive, and I've done this previously when this was being floated probably 6 months ago, and actually looking at the budgets of some of these counties, and we'll do this here a little bit while we're sitting here. We'll look up where their current funding's coming from. But you've got state tax, you've got, and I know every county has a little bit different. I said state tax, I didn't mean that. You've got sales tax. Every county's got different benefits, right? We have in Orange County the benefit of tourism tax, a lot of hotels, a lot of theme parks, things like that. So that's a big function. I get every county doesn't have that. So where does that come from? I saw a friend make an argument essentially just saying, like, the sales tax, although it is a different form, it is the most controllable form in the sense that it's based on your consumption, right? It's like a consumption tax. And a lot of people make this argument. That's how our income taxes should be federally, based on a consumption-based tax. A lot of arguments for and against. A lot of people say it shifts the burden, but it shifts it probably in a more fair, transparent way. I do see this as a little challenge, that because renters will still be renting from folks who are not having the tax benefit decrease. But it will make the argument for renters that it becomes more affordable for you to actually go buy your own home. You carry that authority with you to go drive your costs down when you go buy your own home. So just some thoughts there. So, all right, let me see. I'm diving into some of the revenues for these counties. That's not telling me what I want to see. But all that to say, budget 2020. Let's go budget 2026. Let's see what we have here. All right, so we are on the, share this screen here. Something to look at here. All right, so this is Orange County, Florida budget for 2025, 2026. Let's look at our general revenue line items here. So general taxes, permits grants and fees, shared revenues, grants, service charges, it's a huge number, fines and forfeitures, interest and other total revenues. So they've got essentially $1 billion revenue here. Let's dive into this more because, where does the the property tax piece of this come in? Oh, right here, ad valorem tax. I'm an idiot. Sorry. So $950 million is out of the ad valorem tax. Now, well, the question is not, does that all go away? Because it doesn't. The question is, how much of this is homesteaded properties? I would present to you the fact that most people, not most, a lot of people who have lived in Florida for any elongated period of time and owned more than 4 or 5 years have a much reduced tax burden anyways in terms of making this up. How much of this is commercial? How much of this is, there's a lot of commercial. There's a lot of residential. But this is kind of that number that we're trying to figure out the answer to. So 950, that means that this equates to, what, another 40, another 780, 190 million in other things. And so the question is, how much is commercial? That'll be a good one to dive into, is like how much of that is actually commercial. But we can go in and look at these budgets. And then so the question is, how much do we lose? When you pull out homesteaded properties, how much does the county actually lose in that? And then where does that have to come out, or where does that get reaccounted for? So those are the questions that are going to be ultimately asked. Let me look at a couple other questions here. I love this. When I put all these videos, somebody just says they should eliminate just HOAs. Like, oh, okay, separate conversation. The other one, and I thought this was a great comment by somebody that said they need to, will there be any kind of cap? Will there still be an applied cap on the school portion of this, right? Or can that be, is that going to be able to run amok back to, not that they would be able to fully do that, but I think it's a good question because, does that get capped the same way our current homesteaded property increases? Like our bill can only go up so much per year. So that's the factor that I think we're really, kind of looking for there, is like just confidence that, all right, this is a solution. The next piece of that is, well, if we're getting rid of this, what is the reason for property appraiser? Other than, I guess, commercial and everything else, but it seems like that is a model that is going to be, should be shaken for sure. I've had an experience with that on the building I'm sitting in right now, where we had a 90% increase year over year on a building. And when questioned about it, we're still battling, trying to figure this out, but when questioned about it, there weren't great answers as to why that would be. When we finally got the information we needed, we found out they had increased our effective age. So getting kind of dicey into appraisal lingo, but effective age. So a brand new home, 2025, is very different from a 1960s home. Even if the 1960s home has been fully remodeled, it's beautiful, it's in a great area, you just have functional usefulness that is very different. You've got all of your big mechanical stuff brand new in this one. This one, you've still got, the original infrastructure and whatnot. We're in an old building. We've got a really old building, 1917. And they increased it, the effective age, 31 years like that. For what? For what? They can't answer that. That's what we're trying to get our hands on. And so it just begs the question of like, what what was the appraiser attempting to do? Were they attempting to get our assessed value to market value? And if they were, just say that and go find comps, and because the law requires they have justification for how they're assessing value. And so that is our new journey, is figuring out, okay, what gives you the justification to change the effective year, right? If all of your other factors are saying the value is here, and you can flip this switch and it makes it up here where you ultimately want it, it's a reason for that. And so I think there's a lot of power in the hands of the property appraiser that is not necessary. I think we could simply have, and honestly, like, if someone buys that old 1960s house and dumps a bunch of money into it and makes it good as new, why should they have to pay more taxes on it too? Like, isn't that a good thing? That justification doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would rather see like your underlying dirt value. I don't care what's on top of the dirt. I think you could, and they really do this. When you look, you've got your lot values that have, that are pretty consistent. Like, you're going to go to a neighborhood and you'll see $75,000 for the dirt, and then $400,000 for the house. $75,000 for dirt, $500,000 for the house. Right? There's going to be this accounting that. Now, the land has got to be pretty consistent because, again, you're in the same neighborhood. You have the same view, like all the same things. Why not just have a millage rate that gets where we need to go based on the dirt value? And then we could look at the market as a whole and apply some minor increase to it, over time. I think there's ways that could be solved. So I don't know. This may shake the tree enough to really kind of clean up the spending in that regard, and maybe cut down on some of the power. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll do more of this because there's a lot more questions and a lot more answers. I'm going to do some deep dives on the revenue side and where this is ultimately going to be made up. We know it'll be, somewhat made up somewhere. The question is, which option do you like better?